No finance to order.
We'd like to at 9:31 call Health and Human Services to order.
Good job. So,
I do. So first order of business is to accept the minutes. Anyone?
move it.
Move second. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Now we've got our department requests. Do we bring them up?
Yep.
All right.
I'll help this first. So just to let everybody know, we left off yesterday, we saved $6,000 yesterday in taxes. That's the way it works when you go through highway and you cut out things that you didn't have money for to begin with. Even though it looked like we made big progress, it was very minute. So needless to say, we are in a fiscal crisis. We're still $16 million that we're looking at in a tax increase, which is still, somewhere in the 40% range. So we are looking at having to do some serious things that we haven't had to do in the past. And, we've been there before, but just not to this magnitude. That, I'm gonna need mental health. Welcome, guys.
Morning, everyone. I'm Rob York, Director of Community Services. For anybody who's not familiar, Harry Carlson is with me. He's our Deputy Director of Fiscal. And Harry has put together the 2026 budget. So he's gonna run us through that.
I'll just go over the changes that we did this year.
Each number were.
Revenue was on 14, expenses was on 74.
One of the things we did change in this year is we did increase the federal salary sharing. It was $5,000. It's different because they historically we averaged about 20,000 quarter. But the whole hardest part is trying to decide when they're going to come in. Some years they want to give us 2 quarters, other years they give us about 6 quarters. So, but the average is right around 25,000 each quarter. So we just up that a little bit. The revenues here contain the 2.6% COLA. They call it something, but it's a COLA. Since it was it's effective 4/1 this year, so 1 quarter is figured into the 26 numbers. Again, it's pretty straightforward. The contracts. It's pretty much the only thing that really changed is that in 25 this year, OASIS moved 113,000 more into Washington because of the programs that was offered, and we just established a total recovery proposal for council. So that's a combination of the 530,000 plus the additional monies, and that's all in Washington County now, even though the program is technically more, but here. Then
Service policy.
yeah, service both counties. And then of course the grants and peer-to-peer, that's just again, includes the 2.6% increase here. And then the accrued program expenses for the psychiatric. That we put it in at 525,000. Again, where it's gonna go.
That number was based on a 4-year average. We just looked back into a 4-year average of our actuals.
That's basically it. Pretty straightforward.
Any questions from anyone?
Just a reminder, that was kind of associated to what he was just talking about. Board still has not taken any action on amending the 25 budget for all of the bills that are piling up currently. Just kind of a reminder to keep that on your radar too. We're holding a considerable amount of money right now on those psyche bills.
And I checked on our expenses and so far the billing through August is at 546, 841. That's what we have been due to New York State. We had
another
budgeted three.
So that's 200,000 more
Another
than budget.
$250,000.
Yeah,
Hasn't hit the books yet.
another loss.
Well, are we even budgeting the right? Nothing. Is
We're gonna-
525 the 4-year average?
We're gonna bust that.
For the past 4 years, not fully this year.
So it's been- it's been-
4 full years prior.
We're gonna bust
So
that.
23's average, 23's actual is 194.
Right, so the
24's actual was 450.
We're gonna bust the
But we're
525.
gonna bust the 525 this year. No, we keep adding more in, just means more, somewhere else we have to cut out. Okay,
I'm just trying to look and make the numbers working. So your figures that we had 3.8 million in change coming in for aid. And you're showing before the psychiatric expenses, 3.5 million in expenses. Are we in a $300,000 surplus there? Or where am I reading the numbers wrong?
You gotta add the department above it too, that's 413.
Okay, well, that's what I was trying to find here.
Yeah, those two get added together for that program.
Okay. Which,
So on page 74 at the top. That 413,150, that
Yep.
gets added to the 3.5 million.
okay,
For
that's
the
not,
total.
all right. So that answers that question.
And the difference between those two is our local share of the cover.
The other question I have, Robert, is what do we get for 525,000? This is 2 people, 3 people? How many, we look at 3,000 a day?
It's approximately $1,600 a day for the restoration expenses. And number of individuals, I don't have that with me, but it averages about 2 or 3 at a time that we have in there.
We have to send them there. What do we get? We get housing. Are they getting daily therapy? Are they
They,
getting once?
they do, they get treatment probably there and they go through a restoration curriculum. There's like a training program basically that they are administered there. It goes through like the role of the judge, the role of the prosecutor versus the district attorney, so that they understand the process better. And they educate them on their charges. And the average length of stay is like 2 to 3 months. But some people are in there for extended times, and that's been one of the issues that on the budget.
And the state requires this and they used to pay for it, but now we pay for it, right?
There used to be a split 50-50 where the state paid half and then the county paid half.
Early on this, because, we have taxpayers that are screaming and want us to cut, and one of the few places we can cut is DPW. Well, that's 2 trucks right there when we sell the 2 old ones for 100,000, those trucks clear, roads for 5,000 people to get to work, nurses to get to work, teachers to get to work. Or that's the total salt bill just about for the county, We tell people the fire trucks can't get there because the road isn't solid because we're taking care of 1 or 2 or 3 individuals under the state mandate. That's pretty good common sense.
Well, we look at the numbers and our numbers are basically doubled in terms of the number of people. During the same period of time, what happens is the per diem charge also about doubled. Seeing the doubling of the numbers as well as doubling the charge and then the shift from the state to
Yeah,
the full 100% county, and that's why this has blown up over the last.
don't lose sight of the fact that 50% of this used to be funded.
I just look, not trying to lose sight that we have some costs that benefit the whole county and we have some costs that outweigh it that are 1 or 2 people. being forced to do it.
Not only is it mandated, but they took away the funding.
Which was only 50%.
With the service, is there only one provider? Is there a way to see if there's other providers that would come in at a lesser cost?
We're looking at everything. We're looking at. Would it make any difference if we use different examiners for the front end? We're looking at working with our statewide association as to whether or not could there be regional, community-based or jail-based restoration programs developed so that everybody doesn't get sent to a state facility, that maybe they could go through that restoration process either locally or somewhere regionally where they could be ported out to a regional larger facility like Albany Jail. So there's different efforts out there, because every county is in the same situation that they're dealing with this budget line, going up over the last few years.
Okay, I'll let Jay finish.
Yeah, along those lines, we do have empty spots in the jail and we could contract people to come in and give them the programs there. We've already are paying for the people to be there to take care of the jail, and they're very good at watching people that have issues there. Is there an option there?
We're looking at it.
Dan Shaw.
Yeah, I was just curious, what's included in the admin for 410,000 or 413,000? I mean, what is that? Where is it coming from? I guess I need just simple, I don't need in depth.
It's our share of the community services board expenses we split with Warren County.
Is it a 50-50 split?
Pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. Pretty much.
Hey,
Rob, when they go to the restoration process, they come out, how many of them go back in and do it all over again? Or is it one stop? And they're done?
When we looked at it, there weren't a lot of repeats. There were like one outlier that looked like he had repeated, and come out and then in a short period of time went back in. But for the most part, they're not repeats.
No, and the extended ones are usually somebody that fills out what their jail sentence would have been, and then they let them go because they can't get them there. So that's why they really add up in a length of time, the way I understand it. So,
Is there any way that a maximum ceiling could be put on length of stay?
That's one of the things our statewide association is advocating for is a 90-day cap.
Yeah.
That
Could be
we
less
only
than.
get charged for the first 90 days, because that's the average for a restoration. And that anything beyond that would not be charged to the county.
So that would be a 90-day cap implemented for county expense.
And our statewide association, which is the Conference of Local Mental Hygiene Directors, they're an affiliate of NISAC, so they're working with NISAC. But I think one of the rubs is that the District Attorneys Association has been opposed to some of the changes. So District Attorneys Association is also an affiliate of NISAC, so NISAC's kind of, in the middle there. Understand the impact to the counties.
but in 90 days, that's $134,000 a person also.
Yeah, it's still not.
It's still not cheap.
What defines restoration? And this is so foreign to some of us.
Right, so when somebody's found not competent to stand trial, that basically the standard is whether or not they understand the charges against them and they can assist in their own defense. So when a psychologist or a psychiatrist examines them front end, that's what the examination is determining. Does the person understand their charges and can they assist in their own defense? If they're found not competent and they have the felony charge, then that's when they go under restoration. So if you have misdemeanor charges, it's a different process. We don't get charged for misdemeanor people.
The psychiatrist, state psychiatrists or are they private psychiatrists hired?
So on the front end, the examiners are local, they're not state. At the state facility, it's the state doctors then that make the determination when they are restored to competency. That's, again, one of the problems with the whole process is that it seems like a conflict of interest. the doctor making that determination works for the state. You know. Reaping all this revenue for every day the person's there.
Any more questions for?
I have a question. Is it a single doctor or a firm that runs the state evaluation?
It's not a single doctor, they have more than one doctor, but they're employees of the state.
Right,
State
but
employees.
it's not like a medical system. Like a behavioral health system, correct? It's an individual doctor that's employed by the state of New York that runs the program?
They work in the hospital, so it's a state hospital.
Okay,
And they do work in that hospital system, so yes, it's a state hospital system. And the psychiatrists are employed by the state.
thank you.
Jay.
Just one more question. You may not follow up enough to know. When they're found competent and go to trial, what percentage are guilty?
What percentage are?
Guilty and end up in jail anyways?
I don't.
Okay, I just was curious.
Statistics. Unfortunately, what can also happen is that they can come back and their case gets resolved in some way such that the felony charge is reduced to misdemeanor. The reason they can't do that on the front end is because once the issue of competency is raised, a person can't consent to any kind of plea deal. So that's another unfortunate thing, is that sometimes you have somebody who will go for restoration just to come back and have the felony charge.
So the state's invited us to a baseball game, that they employ the refs, they bring the bats, the balls, and set the ticket prices of this. You're all right.
They're on the baseball game.
You don't get a hot dog.
So you don't get half much at this game.
Well, you do, but they're $10.
Sorry, and we're doing everything we can try to look.
No, and we appreciate that. Thanks, guys. That brings us back.
What are the pages for veterans?
14.
Oh, right.
Or shoot.
18 and
7. Morning, everyone.
I'll start quickly with my revenues, which is nothing's changed since last year. The 25,000 state aid. For expenses. Largely tried to keep most of my lines at a minimum. What I feel is a minimum. Let's start. My telephone line, I requested an increase from 2,000 to 3,000 this year to cover projected cost increases in fees. Postage remains the same at 300. It's been the trend over the last several years. It's hovered right around there. We try to keep it to a minimum, especially with my office transitioning to a lot of digital format. Office supplies. I requested an increase just of $100 with the addition of staff in my office, anticipating needing a little bit more in that area as far as costs throughout the year. Minimal increase of $100. Dues and subscriptions, again, have been at a minimum, and we've been pretty lucky since COVID in that a lot of our accreditation and annual recertifications moved online, so they don't have a lot of dues or fees for us to pay into. But again, with the additional staff and ensuring accreditations, want to maintain that budget. The same can be said for the next two lines between travel and education, training, staff development. Brought those over the last several years down to what I feel are minimums and tried to maintain those lines just to look to getting my office into a position where I can send staff to additional training outside of what are the essential minimal requirements for them to complete their tasks.
But you haven't used any in the last 2 years.
Again, the accreditations and recertifications for us have moved online instead of in person since COVID. So we haven't really had to use the travel funds to go anywhere. They have moved online.
So we put this to every department so far, because if you can do that and something comes up that you have to go to something, you can always come back to us. But in this situation, in the budget, this actual year, we would like to remove them if they're not necessary. That's not a problem.
I don't really have an argument for it to be a problem or not. If it's going to get moved, it's going to get removed. My only counter to that would be that my office is finally, after 4 or 5, 6 years, in a position where I can send staff to additional training without sacrificing our mission capabilities. But that being said, that it hadn't been used in the last few years because our staff has been inundated with claims.
So again, Brian, the message you delivered was,
Right.
if something comes up.
If something comes up that
Just
you
come
really
back.
think, just come back, but I don't know what shape we're gonna be in next year, but it's not looking good at the moment.
So you've got to increase your mileage and travel by $15,000.
So.
I haven't gotten there yet, but yes.
I've been working with Ken on that. That is a realistic number. We projected what this year is gonna be, and what we had anticipated was the amount of cost that will be attributable to adding that second handicap. The board made a decision to buy 2 handicap vans instead of 1, which was a great idea, provided the fact that there was enough demand for it. So the second van is actually getting used in the program. So the downside of it getting used in the program is it builds up cost associated with the mileage. So there was definitely a need for the second van, and you fulfilled that need, but there's a cost associated with that. So it looks like, based on this year's usage of the van, that is a good number for next year.
What on average do you think are the number of veterans you're serving here?
For transportation?
No, for all
Countywide.
claims. Countywide.
So countywide, I can give you a rough estimate of just veterans at about 4,500, give or take a few hundred. That doesn't include spouses of veterans, surviving spouses, dependent children, or adult dependent children of veterans who also have federal benefits available to them that we serve as well. So the total number of actual veterans that we're serving between all 3 VSOs is somewhere in probably about 2,000. That doesn't mean that we have 2,000 active federal claims in for them, but various different services, whether it be transportation or working through different healthcare benefits applications or burial benefits.
Yesterday, this conversation on carpool, you were asking for a new carpool minivan, but you're actually using one out of carpool now. And you wanted, I think, one for your, for like dedicated type thing. Is the one you're using serve all your needs? Or did you need something different than what you're using?
the shuttle vans that are dedicated to my office currently?
No,
Or
the one you're using other car.
So the carpool van right now that we use periodically and actually quite often is really for when we can't group veterans together into one mass transportation to, let's say, the Albany VA, but still a veteran who needs transportation to their doctor's appointment. It makes much more sense to have a smaller vehicle.
But is it sufficient or did you need something different? That's what we're trying to figure out.
No, that's sufficient as far as any other capabilities, handicap accessibility and everything. The shuttle vans have been amazing.
So would you prefer, I know you asked for one to buy a new one, but is it okay if we leave it just with carpool? Or would you rather it was dedicated to you, so you didn't have to go get it out of carpool? I don't know how often you're using it. I'm hoping you'll.
In the spirit of cost savings, then we can continue to use the carpool. The only potential problem that comes up is if there isn't one available, that have to default to either using one of our shuttle vans or looking to community partners like LEAP or DAV or other organizations that can also offer transportation.
Is it usually available when you need it though? You have
Transportation
dates, yeah,
or
the
the van.
van over in carpool, is it usually available?
Usually it is. It's
So-
been one or two minor occasions where we just have kind of scrambled, but have been somewhat lucky in working things out.
Okay,
The question is, does it have to be a van or could it be a RAV4 or some other vehicle?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a van. Vans usually are the most comfortable as far as ambulating mobility, getting in and out. A lot of individuals, a lot of veterans that are using transportation can't drive because they're of senior elderly age, and a low car is very difficult to get back out of once they get down there, and something too high is requires a lot of strength to pull themselves up into.
Thanks.
If there's any questions for them.
I don't know if you know the answer. Prior to 23, what was the state aid? Has it always been 25,000? Hasn't grown at all?
No, it was at 15, I believe.
Prior to 23.
Before that, it was 10, David.
And not that long ago, it was like it went from like 8 to 10, Sam, not that long ago, I think, if you remember, right?
It'll come up a little bit.
Out of curiosity, is it based on just for Washington County, the number of veterans you serve in the county?
It's based on the form that they have, it just says this is what you're gonna get.
They have a lot of.
It's a standard or that's. Honestly, it's not money that I even consider because it doesn't go to my own. It goes to paying our salaries, so.
So. I believe we will remove the travel and the education piece until further notice. You know, I'll come back if there's something that.
I will be.
Yeah, that comes up, Ken, just a matter of coming back to the committee saying, hey, you've got this training you want to do. So what we attempt to do in all the departments is not putting something into the budget, the taxpayers that we may not use. And then it's, you know, I don't
I
see
understand.
what you committed to do that, so you should be okay.
I understand.
okay, before you go, you have staffing requests for next year?
Staffing request to take my part-time clerk to full-time.
And what is that based on? Why?
That's based on the ever increasing and never slowing down pace of the front office and countering when one of the clerks at the front is tied up on the phone and taking care of whatever new situation comes almost on a daily basis our way. The other clerk can work with the walk-ins that are coming in and facilitating whatever their needs may be.
Okay, are you looking for 35 hours or 40?
35.
And also I have a request for motor vehicle operator part-time at 4 part-time spots.
Yes, I requested 4 additional spots for drivers. That's not necessarily to increase the hours and the workload. It is to have a roster of drivers available, so I don't fall short on being able to provide manpower.
And the only other thing was, one is your salaries reviewed as well.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
You appreciate it.
Youth Bureau.
Need to.
1982, I think she says.
I do have some. I apologize, I think I'm one of the old, I have for agenda item.
What is the ages?
Oh,
We're on the,
yeah, but it's.
Dan, we're on the handout.
Always.
Handout first. Handout.
That was the problem.
You know, most of the day spend on. You know.
Yeah.
Three people.
Together.
All right, yes, sir. Good day.
I do have one agenda item before we get to our budget, and that is I need permission to submit our resource allocation plan to the state, and that is it's due today. So and it would be as outlined on the chart, on this chart. And that's the YDP funds, the Youth Sports and Education funds, the Youth Teams funds, and the RHYA funds. The difference, the YDP for this year was the same as last year. However, because we, one of the community programs that was supported, which was our Parks PYD, there was a reduction. We're going to be doing a Ladder Up to Success program, which is a leadership program for youth to be on our youth subcommittee, on our youth board, and to provide some leadership activities. But because there was a reduction in that fund, it added $1,000 to all of the town and village rec programs component on that for YDP funds. So, and then RHYA funds were slightly down from last year of $999. And those are pass-through dollars that go to the Wait House shelter. And then our youth sports and education opportunity dollars, that was an increase of 14,532. And these were the programs that submitted applications and the funding that was available for them. The administration piece is the allowable 15% that can be kept in-house at the Youth Bureau. And then the youth team sports, that funding was down $49 from last year. And these are the programs that submitted applications. We did not have to turn away any programs or reduce funding to any programs for this year.
So these are solid numbers for the towns to put in their budgets?
Yes,
Okay.
well, with approval, and then of
Today,
course,
right,
with the state approval with the wrap. Once it's put together.
budgets, I guess.
I'll make a motion. So we have a motion to, do we move it anywhere?
No,
Just
just permission.
Just permission for me.
Yeah,
to send
a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, too.
And then on to the budget, we start at page 19 at the bottom. With our revenues, we anticipated we upped our revenue for department income other. Those are all our program revenue. So Alive at 25, Distracted. We increased that $500 because we have been getting substantially more Alive at 25 referrals and Distracted driving referrals, and that is a fee-based It is tied to an expense line. There are some expenses that come out of this, which is totals like 9,630 out of our 4,290 expense line. Transitions, the 20,000, next line, that will remain the same, that the Hudson Falls contract for education at the jail. So the 2210 line, this is our Warren County contract. We do not have a signed contract right at this moment. So we didn't add it to the budget, and we anticipate that that will need to be added 164,542, which will
To be added.
to be added once we have a signed contract. And that would be 3/4 of the contract. The total contract is 219,390. But the contract starts October 1 and ends September 30th. So we anticipate that we'll be able to add that to that line.
So what do you anticipate that line being? The two added together, the 164 and
We-
the 105?
No, we anticipate that it would be 164,542.50.
Down
Which is
from last
3/4, because it's 3/4. Last year, we put the full amount, we changed the program year, last year, mid-year. So it really is 3/4 of the funding this year, and then a quarter will be picked up again at the end of next year.
The total contract will still be 219,000.
219.
It's
Yeah.
just they changed it from a January 1 to
Thank you.
December 31 to an October 1st to September 30th.
Still the 219.
Yeah.
It's still 219. The
Yeah.
reason being is they're
Yes.
trying to get it to line up with state funding
Yes.
that they pay us through.
Okay, I understand.
And with
Still a 219.
within that contract is where our youth intern, that is also as an expense. If we have a signed contract, the youth intern position would be $20,924. If we do not, of course, we would not hire that youth intern. And then, yeah, so that's the main expense that comes through that contract.
Oh,
So the expenses are in here that would be drawn off of the contract.
So the expenses are in there because our youth intern is in our salary chart, but it would be taken out if we don't get that contract. Any questions? Okay, so our 2801 interdepartment revenue, at the time that we submitted the budget, we did not have the STSJP potential dollars. And so we have a tentative notice that has been approved. We have not received the official notice. Those are dollars. That's 194,720.96. That should be added to that line.
36,000.
Yes. And that's a total of 231,124.96. With a side note, within the STSJP funds, there's a possibility to raise the age dollars of $12,000.
That isn't happening.
That ain't coming.
That isn't happening.
Unless there's some sort of waiver.
There'd have to be a
I've heard there's
miracle.
some sort of waiver to still be able to potentially recoup that 12,000. So whether I take that out or leave that in. If the tax, yeah, okay.
Hopefully this thing goes better, as I'm talking, it's getting better now.
It's still $400,000 that we were taxing, so.
Right.
Right, and the raise the age 12,000 that gets recouped at 100% is our electronic monitoring, some of the electronic monitoring for juveniles and our JCR program for juveniles and community services.
You can send a letter for the waiver at any time.
Okay, got it.
You're gonna need it.
Moving on, the 3389.06 That currently shows the $13A that we received from DCJS. For the last 2 years, they've also provided in a block grant format an additional pretrial dollars, which is last year was 97,645. We've had unofficial notice from DCJS that is in the budget for this year and that we should be receiving notification. We don't know what that allocation is. I'm assuming last year was 97, the year before that was 101. So I don't know what that will be, but so thus we didn't put anything into that line.
Is there an expense that already goes with that in here though? Or would there be an expense if you get that money?
So the only potential expense that we were thinking of putting in for the would be if we were thinking ahead and thinking about copiers that we don't need this year, but we will need next year, and whether we can purchase the copier out of that funding. If that makes sense too. That's a lot. Other than that, it goes to 0.1 and to staff
That are already there.
that are already there. Nothing else, the 157 remains the same. We anticipate the other public safety day reporting dollars to remain the same. And then, so our state aid for youth programs, that was a mistake. And she just put in the same dollar amount from last year. And really that should be 351, 360.
Seems like getting better as she goes on.
I love your
It
mistake.
doesn't always happen.
These
So-
are good
We
mistakes.
need good news.
That was a good mistake, but it was a mistake.
Right, go back a second.
Yep.
Go back to your 338906. Should we put a number in there?
I wrote it down, but I don't know if you're gonna hear before the budget. I would
Don't
wait
know.
to hear from if she gets the number, I'd like to know that before I actually put it in param.
No,
So
But I may put some,
you gotta put something in there.
yeah. You know, if it was 101 and 97,
That's right, I mean,
I'm comfortable with 97, but sometimes we wait till the last minute. with
And last year it
you know,
came- I think the notice came right after
That we passed
the
the
meeting.
budget.
Yeah, right after.
No, right after this
original
meeting,
It
before,
was
yeah,
before the
I-
budget.
yeah, I
So,
believe that's the case.
So I guess that mine. Just had it here. Why was 2024 actual so low? 2024 actual was 38,247,
on what line?
Same line.
same line.
Oh, thank you.
And it must have come after we adopted the budget because.
Yes, in
the budget.
2024,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. it did.
Yeah. According to this, what about but Dave is a good question. What about the actual? 24 never made it.
There's no good.
Change. Or it never came. I don't know. Or that year we didn't get it. I don't know.
We received it this will be the 3rd year.
Maybe it's in a different line. Maybe just got put in a different place because you got, you know. Well, you went high from 23 to 24 and the turning sunset line at the bottom. But then it stayed there, so I don't know.
Stuck out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be actual.
But if it's coming now, I guess.
Yeah.
Whether it makes
Sure.
it.
We didn't receive it. We're supposed to. We gotta go back and get it.
Yeah.
I think we did receive them. I'll double check. Oh, you know what we have not received yet? Is the 81,484. I don't know that we've received that block grant yet.
shows it as a year. You're more up to date, right, with yours and ours.
Any other questions on this piece?
So,
Our expenses are on page 19, towards the bottom. What? Oh, 82, sorry, 82 for the bottom. Oh, just cut it out. So our regular earnings. This does not factor in 806, 394 does not factor in our reduction from our senior drug alcohol to our regular drug alcohol that was approved, and nor does it factor in the program specialist down to a program assistant. So the savings for the drug alcohol senior was $9,061.92, and then $8,294 for the program specialist to the program assistant. So it did not factor in that item, those $2 amounts. So if factored in, it would be a total of $788, $742.63 for that line. And then I don't know if this is a place to put in that the staffing asked was, we have 2 people that potentially could move to a senior level position. Because through in 2026, they will have their 2 years, which is the minimum qualification, and then added responsibilities. So if that was approved, that would add $3,270.54. So depending on without the senior level positions, the line on page 83, the salary and wages total would be $832,447.63 without the senior level, factoring in senior level. And then down to our contractual expenses. Telephone is up by $28 because that we added a tablet for on-call, but we reduced the postage 400 and kept the office supplies the same as ink and toner and those types of things. Still seem to be quite pricey. We reduced the equipment non-asset down to 500. This is definitely somewhere we could probably manage and maybe not purchase anything next year. We just added 1 mower and 1 trimmer as that line, but it's definitely something that we could potentially take out and then make do with what we've got to get us through the year. And we would generally put a mower and a trimmer in only to for a rotation of equipment.
how's the board feel on that, in or out? Oh,
Let's go for you.
Fun, got
So
fun
Yeah.
Ben,
Yeah, so just a thought, in DPW, we're always buying equipment over there. That's not to be replaced to keep it up because of their workload. And we don't get anything for them when we get done with them because they're used. Can they be passed on to you?
We would take them.
Happy to take them.
Well,
it's good. No, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
it's a good
idea.
idea.
Good idea.
Hadn't really
I
thought
mean,
about it, but
mowers
if there
and-
was,
yeah, I mean, the thing of it is we're buying new equipment for the men to be out in a storm and whatnot, so there's no problems, but you know, if you had something that didn't start, you had 3 of them, one of them might start. You know, I'm just- because you get nothing for them when you throw them in the office.
Or also building and grounds has it, but maybe with both those, we could schedule where you guys could use it when they weren't using it.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
and sometimes we do utilize, their equipment and we kind of borrow them and they're very good with us as far as our needs. Or they'll let us take snow blowers for winter fest and those types of things. So we do share some equipment. We tend to buy, I'm gonna say, lower budget items because, yes, exactly. So, but that's a great idea. I think if you get nothing for them, we certainly could potentially use them.
So most of your equipment's pushable or,
Yes.
Yeah,
hand,
younger
quick mow,
operators never
and, you know, basic
no, you don't have, to-
trimmers.
don't have your riding lawnmower, so.
We do have one riding lawnmower that was purchased through a grant years ago that we keep maintained, which is part of our maintenance, kind of budget line.
So do you think you can work it to take those 2 hours?
Yeah, I think we could work it to take those 2 out and use the equipment that we've got and see where we are inventory for next year. Okay, our contract expenses are tied to our revenue line of 3820 in most cases. So there is one change. We do not have the YDP number, the 49,949. We didn't have we didn't know where the allocations were going to go. So it included the 9824. So really the number should be 4125 for that line. Right. The YDP.
So you're saying all of these are covered by money coming in from the state?
Yeah, so the RHYA is passed through. We do keep that admin dollars. The YDP, we keep some admin dollars and then we're keeping the 98,240, 224, 9824 for the youth leadership program. And then the youth sports and education and the youth team sports, we keep a certain portion also that's not, these are the dollars that are going out the door. So they're tied to that revenue line. We keep a certain 15% admin for those.
So what is 2,500 for other?
So that is when programs, additional programs, and that actually is when additional programs request funds that really they're not a program that would traditionally be funded under YDP, like the firemen's sports firemen. In Greenwich, there's a fireman program, youth program. We've given dollars to youth fishing derbies. So that's actually a line that potentially could be reduced. These are extras that when a program has a need and they're really having a hard time and they serve a lot of youth, they'll come to the Youth Bureau and that's that funding stream.
Back in here,
Is everybody okay to cut that?
basically she was cutting herself, right?
Yeah.
40,000.
No, we were talking about this line, that's our like additional youth programs that we usually it's $250 or $500 that comes out of this line for we've supported fishing derbies, we've supported
Discretionary funds.
yeah.
Yeah. Where's the board on that? Out.
Go ahead and remove it, but again, if one of those situations comes up.
Or you can help, I'll bring it, come back. Bring it
Okay.
back.
Okay, because I will.
I wanted to go back to your 2 overtime lines.
Yep.
Well, it seems like they're a little high for what you're actually using.
So
But maybe Between rate changes and what's coming up, I don't know.
I don't know either. I can say that because we never know how many, a lot of the overtime is tied to people on electronic monitoring, juveniles, kind of the outside of the norm business hour stuff. So it definitely fluctuates, whether there's room there and I can come back if we need to go over. If we are going over that line, but it's kind of one of those lines that are difficult to judge how much.
Well, 23's actual was bigger on both of them than 24's. So I didn't know if it was trending down or if it's hit or miss, and that's what I don't know.
It's a little bit hit or miss, if I remember correctly when we were looking at these numbers.
And we've also tried to change a little bit of our on-call policy to not be out in the field as much if it's things that we can do over the phone and things that we can do to support whatever youth or family we're working with instead of actually going out and responding. So we have changed some of that. So hopefully it'll stay lower. This was one of the lines we cut 3% off last year. So it could be something we could look at again.
And just on the on-call.
Yep.
Is it the 2-hour additional mandatory that goes along with that? That adds that cost up?
Yes.
And maybe, I mean, that's policy, I think.
And-
county.
And
Maybe we should look at reducing.
we rotate, so depending on, their normal business, hours that they're here, and depending on where they're at with those hours, if they also happen to be on call and it happens to be somebody that's a real challenge and they put in some extras, that's where some of the overtime and the overtime plus comes in, is because you don't know, you can't plan those, I guess is my case, it's unplanned.
I'm thinking we could take 5,000 out of the rate straight overtime and 2,000 out of the time and a half. Just looking from what your actuals are and your past history. Go from that. And like I said, if you have to come back and ask, there's gonna be a lot of people having to come back and ask after this budget's done.
Okay.
So if that works for you, I'd take 5,000 and 2,000 out of those two lines.
Okay.
Or do you have any problem with that, or
No, no problem.
any more questions?
No. Thanks.
What else do we have?
So, okay, what else we have? Where were we? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
On the CCE line,
What?
that for a specific project, is it just into them, that's like.
So that's the dollars that go to Cornell, the 8,000.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
contract with Cornell for our parenting program that comes out of our STSJP
It's
funds.
specific, it's not just
Yeah.
support for them.
Yes, no, it's specific for the parenting program that's funded through the STSJP funds.
How many participate in that? Is it required by court sometime?
So this one is, well, sometimes it is required by courts, but oftentimes these are the, if we're working with a kid and it's the parents and the kids, through any of our PINS program or our pre-PINS program or our JCR program, that's the dollars that support that. So it depends on the year on how many parents and kids, because it is a program that works with both of them. The parents get a certain amount of parent education, and then of course the youth are involved in that. So oftentimes it's a little bit more of a mediation kind of piece. I didn't bring the numbers. I should have brought the numbers, but I did not.
The reimbursement, that's where
Yeah.
you're at.
So meal, we just kept the same. Those are when, if we were to go to a conference. Looks like we haven't spent any, this year.
Last.
Any that you spent this year wouldn't be in the line yet, because it goes through payroll and has to be reclassed, so you would
Right,
see it
I
there.
thought we did have.
Okay.
Right now it's buried in your point one.
Thank you. this is a kind of a new line, so we're.
Yep.
Dues and subscriptions, we had an increase of $75. I can take that off. We'll just not do that, so we can keep it at. Those are the annual Youth Bureau Association ×2, so that's an expense that comes out of the Warren County contract. Also, so it's Washington County, Warren County, and our Association for Pretrial Services and Justice Clearinghouse, which we use as a training for the full staff. We pay for one and then we all use the password for training. And then the NIAPSA, which is our state association, and our NAPSA.
So
So I could get rid of the NAPSA. That's a overriding multi-state association.
Thank you for that.
Now that I was hearing you, when we were talking about the travel other, I can say that often I put everything in here. I mean, when we were developing everything that we possibly would go to. However, associations and the state often picks up the tab. We just don't know that they will until they do. So what we do with this line, I guess I can come back. We know that there's the Youth Bureau Association training and directors meeting. We know that, I mean, I have the travel plan. Those are all things that we're expected to be at in our travel plan. So what we do in this budget line, we can cut it and then I can come back and ask if there's something specific that we need to go to. Last year, and we never know from year to year whether there'll be a local conference or whether there'll be an away conference. And we never know that until, you know, the time. So this year, the Youth Bureau Association, this year, meaning 2025, ended up being a local. It's in Albany. So there's really not a huge fee associated with that. Whereas next year, I believe it'll be in Lake Placid, but so maybe cut it in half. Then back to 1,200.
okay, yep.
Works for me. So. Thank you for that.
We appreciate that you didn't get rid of them.
And then we did reduce our program expenses. We're not, we didn't put in there anything, no journals or anything like that we'd be purchasing, and we reduced our Winterfest expense line, our work crew line expense. So that lower, it was a reduction of 9,820 in that area.
No, your carpool line, of course, it pays our carpool, so we don't want the money to disappear, but your actual, but that's only through July, so do you think it'll? Because it's
So-
reached 19 and 17, it's been up before. You do cut it a little.
So, yeah, we did cut it. I can say. To our totals. So far, we did have a couple cars. Our totals so far are. Without August, September, October, November, December. We did have one of our staff was out, our community service person, so some of that reflection of this year's mileage, we would have a reduction because we weren't able to take on as many projects as we normally do, which definitely, so it won't be exactly reflective of what we'll need for next year on that line, if that makes sense, because
But
we
you,
did have a staff member out.
so you basically think that's a realistic number, that's all.
I think it's a fairly realistic number. What are your thoughts?
There's 6635 through June, averaging 1,200 a month.
I think when we historically went back and looked at that number too, I think our highest was that 19,243. So there may be a little bit of room on that line.
20,000 work.
Well,
There was the drug testing, is that mandated drug testing and is that covered by the state?
So the drug testing is often, with the exception of our in-house drug testing, we do drug testing for DSS. So it's a charge on one end and then we receive the dollars back from DSS on the other end. So it's mostly a wash,
So that's zero, okay.
basically a wash for drug testing. Oh, and besides DSS, we do the drug testing for, the lab drug testing for felony drug court, but the participants have to pay the cost for that. So again, it's kind of a wash.
Are those revenues?
Yeah.
Your revenue come up above accounted for?
Yes,
They are.
yes, it's accounted for in 1289.
With 1125, it's in with those monies.
Yes, yes. The e-task incentives, the $2,000, that's per that contract that we have. And we get those dollars recouped from TCJS for e-task, for the e-task grant.
I have a question on the 40/40 numbers for expenses, the RHY.
Yeah.
Is that a net zero for us? If I completely the revenue, the 200,000? We see if that's,
So the actual number for the RHY is 230. We're allowed to keep a 10% admin in-house. So we maximize those dollars to keep them in, and then the rest of what's left goes to the White House for their services.
We should make a little bit on,
okay, so that's thank you.
hate to say it that way, but
No, I wasn't sure where that was going.
because not only is the contract offset salary expenses, you get that quick of admin on top of it.
Any,
I think you.
yeah, I don't think there was anything more specific. The 4625, that was also tied to our rural communities of practice, and because we paid for a certain time span of services from an Atlas online journaling, we had to account for it in this budget year. I don't think I'm saying that correctly, but it's something that is tied to the original dollars that we have for that, which will end this year.
So,
So first of all, I want to thank you for all you're doing. Second of all, the fair and the Winterfest, are those local related item purchases?
So the Winterfest, we pay the porta potty.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the standard porta potty, and then
we'll cut that.
I prefer not to cut that, although we do have people every year asking whether they use the bathrooms, but anyway, so we pay for the horse and wagon traditionally, and we pay for the porta potties. We've been fortunate with the sheriff's department and public health, and so depending on those costs, they're roughly $1,000. So the others would be if we wanted to do something else. It's kind of an unknown a little bit. Is there a little bit room there? Maybe. We know that the porta potties are like $400 and the horse and wagon is like $560 or was last year.
Is it local money too?
Local, yes.
local
No,
money,
there's no
meaning
grant eligible
there's
expenses.
no grants that we've found to cover those costs.
Was there interest in cutting Winterfest or keeping it in budget?
What's the total cost of the Winterfest?
1,200 should be, but
It stays on that 1,200.
Yeah,
For her portion, right?
I
But
think
there's
it-
other departments involved as well.
I think it is a lot of value for the times I've been. There's a lot of local people come out, but if you think it's that bad, then you need to cut that.
We don't know what the total cost is.
It's well,
For all, like, how much the sheriff and how much.
Oh, yeah, so the,
But they spend,
The
it's in
sheriff,
their, it's in their hourly budget, their time, right? You're paying for them to be somewhere that
It's
day.
out.
so.
the sheriff does provide, food. So,
I think the value we get for it is amazing. Having attended them, there are people there that actually feel like they're getting something back for their dollar.
yeah,
So.
They actually just said their tax bill.
right, yeah. It is well attended. I mean, every year it's generally well attended.
Angela.
From the chief bird down here, I support leaving it in there. Clear things up.
Right, it's the complete opposite of the conversation we were having earlier.
Right.
Jay says, I mean, it's the value added to what we expend. We get a good rate of return on this one, I think, for the community.
Well, there's a willing cooperation.
I'd have a
Yeah.
good
If
community.
it doesn't, but if it doesn't,
They still have a
unless
good
it's
time.
extremely cold, and then, of course, it would still be in our budget if we didn't have Winterfest for some reason. By those dollars.
Thank you.
Oh, and the fair. So the fair, this is dollars that we use to buy the button parts or some of the button parts.
The outreach, yeah.
Yeah, the outreach. And we do provide a lot of outreach and so that's that expense. So I would like to keep the fair, but that's just a little bit.
I think it's good to leave it in there just because he gets exposure as a county. I mean, we're there. And we're talking little numbers here that I don't think we need to delve into that and mess it up.
Yeah.
We're messing up enough, I believe.
you're getting soft, the government opts, we're $100 threshold, man.
No, I never did that. I think it was Charlie that did $100.
We're in a rounding error
Okay, any more questions for Sue?
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You can have it on the grant.
Yeah.
Oh, Tina Sue set the threshold, we needed more than 500,000 from you, so it's good.
Unless they brought donuts.
Or it stays.
All right. I was playing about that. I was kind of.
Public health, revenues. Do your, yeah, do the business first, so let Charlie handle that.
Budget amendment.
So we do have one budget amendment that we'd like to request is to move funds from our public health salary line to our disease control line. And this is to cover rabies post-exposure treatment. It's in the amount of $60,000. We have seen a significant increase in the number of people that we've had to send for post-exposure. In particular, we had one summer camp this summer where we had a large sleeping area that had an exposure. So we had to send those kiddos for post-exposure. So for that, we are responsible for anything insurance doesn't cover. So if there's high deductible plans that people haven't met their deductibles, we do get billed for those expenses. And that is something that's within public health law, that we are responsible for that. We do have some funding that comes in. We have our rabies grant, which we maximize each year. And we also have Article 6 state aid that we can claim those expenses on. Again, there is a limit on that as well. And once we go over that core funding, it's funded at 36%. So we are forecasting to be over in this line item, the 4630, by about 60,000. Yeah, so we do have some breakage at 0.1s, that we can cover that overage. So we're just looking for a resolution to move money into the 406, 4630 to cover those expenses.
That's gotta go to finance, right? So I'll move that to finance.
I'll second.
Dana seconds it, all in favor?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You said the overages that not paid for by health insurance is required by public health law.
It
to be
is.
Paid by the county.
It is.
Only for rabies?
So for rabies,
$60,000 unfunded mandate, am I correct when I say that?
Yeah.
Add that to the list.
And what other areas might be covered if something happened? There, is this rabies specific?
this is rabies specific. So we have agreements with most of our people. We go to Glen Smells Hospital or Saratoga Hospital for post exposure. So they bill insurance, and then whatever insurance is affecting, we then get the review balance. Sometimes it's just a copay that we have to pay. Other times it's a deductible that we have to pay. Unfortunately, there are times when people don't have insurance, and then we're responsible for that whole bill. And again, we do have some funding that comes in, but it's not enough to cover the full expense there.
Did you say this was $60,000 due to exposure for rabies?
Yes.
How do you test for rabies, whether they were
They
exposed?
couldn't find the culprit, so they had to get everybody.
No,
vaccinated.
I didn't, that's
No,
not the
that-
question.
That's
Throw
what
water
payment
on,
was
yeah.
for, was to get everybody.
Right, so-
Right, how do you test somebody to find out whether they're exposed or not?
We don't test the person.
You can't test the person.
If we have the animal, or we have then we do send it to a local vet and they prep it. And we send it down to Wadsworth Lab, and the animal's tested. If the animal becomes back negative, then there's no need for the person to have post-exposure prophylaxis. If
So
they-
the 60,000 was to test the animal?
No, the 60,000 is to pay for the people that were exposed
Treatment to everybody.
for treatment.
Oh, they all got treated?
Yes.
They all got treated.
Oh, that's what I was trying to find out. They weren't tested, they were
No,
They
treated.
were
They were
treated.
treated.
Yeah, so they all got treated. It wasn't they got tested, they got treated.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Couldn't find the animal.
Thank you.
How many were
I
treated?
thought they
How many?
were the test.
From that camp,
Yeah.
We'll go above the,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Find insurance.
Can you say all in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
I have an objection to the state law.
Okay,
Thank
now
you.
in finance, we need to pay that bill.
I'll move it.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Sam, all in favor, say aye.
I object.
Opposed? Mary,
Says pass.
A couple of those unfunded mandates you don't pay was.
oh,
Do you think that will break with objection by my name? Probably not. Yeah.
that's the problem, there is so many unfunded mandates, that's why we're in the shape we're in,
Another,
it's big for.
To follow up on Dana's point here, it looks to me like the vector is going up for rabies lately. We were on a drill downswing, it looks like it's coming back up, and we did 2 or 3 that haven't had exposure, but we still have it
right,
in our town.
yeah.
So are we expecting an increase in this?
We are seeing an increase. We've had 5 positive animals already that we've tested that we know for sure have been positive. 2 of those were bats, which is unusual. Usually we haven't had a positive bat in several years. We've had 2 already this year where there's been exposures. We've had a positive raccoon, a positive cat, and a positive otter. So we have had seen an increase, and it's kind of sporadic throughout the county. It's not one particular area where we've seen that, but there has been an increase, and that's just not to our county. We've heard that on our calls, that it's, other areas of the state as well. That there's been an increase.
Northeast corridor pretty much.
But this is This is the reason we have public health. It's there to handle things like that.
Nice.
That's been the case of Vermont too for him.
Yeah, the goal of this program is to prevent a human case of rabies, which would be exponentially more expensive.
That's how you get zombie, right?
We have other ways here.
Say,
but that
not
would be
act well.
one.
You guys have seen that?
We have not seen a positive rabies person in our county. Other counties in the state.
Right, that's why you do
It's
this,
so rare now.
right, that's why you do the treatment.
Let's move on.
We'll probably talk about that again.
Let's. Okay, we're on to the budget, I believe.
Seven and.
Yep, so we're gonna start on page 7, if that's okay with everyone. How we have it set up is, and again, I hope this is okay with everyone, we have the revenue, related to the program, and then we have the expenses that follow that. So you can see the expenses that really, that tie into that revenue, as well. So we'll start on page 7, with our preschool program. It's down at the bottom, 2960. That first revenue account is the 162102. That is the money we receive for billing preschool services to Medicaid. You'll see that we budgeted 600,000 in 2025. We have dropped that down to 459,000. What we're seeing is less children eligible for Medicaid. So therefore, you're not able to bill Medicaid for those services. So that is the reason for the decrease there.
And there's no actual yet. Does that usually come this month?
That comes
So it
later.
gets booked year-end, by the treasurer.
Treasurer.
We are trending higher this year because there was, at the end of 2024, we weren't able to claim because the state put a hold on what we were able to claim for 2 months, from October to December. So that our number for 25 is gonna inflate. So we're projecting 671,000 for 25. Because we had $147,000
That was
claim
carried over.
carried over, yeah, that didn't hit until 25.
Do we know a reason as to why why that was on hold, other than they were broke? Was it something different?
They were telling us it was a software issue.
Coding.
Coding.
Yeah.
It was a coding issue.
It was a glitch.
They didn't buy the 5-year test.
When it's minus, they did just didn't pay it out.
And again, that was not just our county, that was statewide.
Yeah. Big glitch.
So we weren't able to claim 147,000
During that time.
during
period.
that time period.
But then we collected in 2025. On page 8, continuing with 2960, the 3446 account, that is our 59.5% reimbursement that we get from the state education department for services provided under preschool. And you'll see that that's down as well to the 2.2 million versus 2.4 million. We did adjust that based on that 59.5% is not a true 59.5%. There are chargebacks that hit that, such as we do have it's called the 4408 chargeback, which the county has to pay 10% for children that attend summer school. That's a chargeback from the school districts that we do have to pay. So that's it's not a true 59.5% that we get back there. So we did adjust that for those chargebacks. So that's the revenue number that we have projected for the 3446 account. Any questions sorry?
Couple of questions. One, we're only at 406, so they're real slow and catching up with us then.
We won't get paid until, the treasurer keeps his books open for us, I feel, because we won't get paid till March of 26. So the treasurer can book it for
And,
prior year.
and this money goes actually towards what? And It looks the way you're talking that probably our share is somewhere just north of 2 million in the county share.
So this particular program is for the preschool children that have developmental delays. And they go to,
The schools.
they could go to center-based programs such as New Meadow. There's different ones throughout the area that they go to. And those expenses, the county pays those expenses, and then this is the reimbursement we get for those.
Well, I was just wondering, because a lot of schools have a lot of money invested, especially if it came out of this account or not.
Yeah, so.
If they're doing in-house,
Right, so this is just for the 3 to 5 year olds, this particular program. And we do get a charge back from the schools as well for these children and administrative costs that we also have to pay, which will be listed in our expenses as well.
It's primarily tuition expenses, other $3 million number.
On the expenses line, we can move to the expenses line.
I
That's
didn't
on,
mean to jump.
yep, no, that's fine. That's it's page 53. Are the expenses for the preschool program. Everybody there.
While they're looking, how many kids did we maintain in this 3 to 5 group?
So it fluctuates.
Yeah.
So right now we're at 174 kids. We've seen throughout the year, it'd be up to 220.
175 between the ages of 3 and 5. It fluctuates, of course.
It does. We do have kids that come out of our early intervention program, especially in January, they age out to preschool.
Figure the total kids in the age group of 3 to 5 are throughout the county.
That's what I was just trying to figure out. It's
Yeah.
not more than 1,000. Way less than 1,000.
It's somebody
It's like each. We had 16,000 people here. Let's. More than half of it are 55. That's incredible.
It is mandated.
It is.
Yeah.
Right here, it's showing that the solid New York State, is any federal money drop into that state funding that could be clawed back? On this area?
Probably the Medicaid piece, there are, because we do get paid by Medicaid, so there is that federal portion of the Medicaid. Yep. Other than that, the other is state, it's the state education department. So unless they see cuts from the federal and then it's somehow passed through this program, nothing directly from federal.
So some of this is Medicaid based.
Yes, that one account, the one revenue account, the 162102, is a Medicaid revenue account. That is strictly Medicaid dollars that we bill.
Sorry, what number did you say?
It's on page 7, the 2960, 2102 at the bottom of the page. That's the money that we bill to Medicaid for the services provided by our service providers. You're welcome.
And you've already cut that back.
Yes.
And we have no knowledge of whether that's gonna be cut or not, right? We know there's been cuts, but we don't know where they actually are at this point. Yeah, but it does. So it seems to be an area that they've tried to leave alone, but I don't know that for sure.
So if we move on to the expenses on page 53, again, the 2960 account. The 0.1s are pretty consistent. It's actually, we've actually lowered the 0.121. We do have some new staff that has less longevity. So we were able to lower that based on those the staff that we currently have. The overtime is consistent with prior years. If we go down to the 0.4s, that first line, office supplies, that's just for our general office supplies. We do have binders that we buy. We have a binder for each child where we have to have paper copies of charts within there, which we do get requests for. The 40/40 account is the contractual account. That is where we pay the evaluations out of for the program. And this is also where I was talking about how the school charges us back for administrative costs. That's also where what hits this line. So it's evals and the school administrative costs that we pay. And that is section 4410 of the New York State Education Law, that we have to reimburse them for that, the portion of the administrative costs. And just to make you aware, the administrative costs that the bills we've received so far this year have increased 30,000 from last year. So we will have to move funds to cover that cost, which we will have available funds, we believe, in our transportation line to cover those funds. So we'll be bringing that back, to request that resolution at a future meeting. And then our maintenance contract line, we do have a software that we use for billing. It's the McGinnis software, so that's what's included in that line. Again, that's how we do our billing. We have our education training line, $250. That is we do have someone that goes to the NISAC conference, so I know there was previous discussions about that. That is something that, we could not attend. Usually the person that goes, she'll go one day. There is a committee that is specific to this program that she's part of. So again, that is money that we, she doesn't have to attend. We do get good information from the meeting. But again, that is an area that if we need to, we could take that out. 1%. And it's just the one day, and she usually only goes to the one that's local, the one that's in Albany. Usually if it's in
This
Buffalo.
doesn't show up in the actual. Surprise.
So she didn't go this year. It's also based on the agenda.
Okay,
So it's not every year that she goes and really look at the agenda and make sure that it's gonna be relevant, to what she needs.
okay.
Carpool, that's consistent from previous year. That is, we do have staff that travel to school districts, and they also go to in-home meetings and evaluate. They meet with the evaluator at the home to be part of that discussion on whether the child qualifies for the program.
Tina, you're over that now, and we're only through June.
We're at 14.
Right, but you've cut
Those
it,
meetings have died down
okay.
with the annual reviews for the kiddos. So we won't really see too high of any more of expenses for preschool, for the carpool.
Why did we move it up? So
What was the question?
it didn't.
We amended it to 2,700, we moved it up, but now you're moving it back.
So we did have a staff member that is no longer with us, but she was using. Sometimes people are using their own vehicles to go out and do these visits, depending on their preference. This particular staff person was using the county car to go to all of the meetings. Again, their preference. So that is why the amount was a little bit higher.
Public health used to have cars allotted or assigned just to them. Do you still?
We do.
For 1,200 or what, couldn't just pull out a carpool and utilize those rather than have the cars sitting there?
It is possible to do that. Two of the cars that we have are cars that we purchased on our own with public health COVID funding. So those ones were grant funded. So those ones are under public health, I guess, owned. I know they're owned by the county, but they're cars that we purchased under grant funding. So those are two cars that we have assigned to us. The other two are fleet cars that we have from carpool.
How often are all 4 cars out?
Most of the time, all 4 cars are being used throughout the week. We used to have many more cars. We have downsized quite a bit with our cars. Yeah. The medical supply line. So this is a line that I guess is up for discussion. We are responsible if a child needs any sort of assistive, and they're in this program, needs assistive devices. We are responsible for paying that. If the child has Medicaid, we can bill Medicaid for that device. If they don't, it is a county cost. So we have, as you can see in 2024, we had $544. We've budgeted $1,500 there. We don't know what's gonna come up throughout the year that a child might need that we would be responsible for. My concern, I guess, with eliminating the funding within this line is I don't want a child to have to wait, to have to come back to committee to get approval to move money. I know it could be a budget transfer, which could happen if we have money in other lines that we could move it there, so it would be a little bit quicker of a process. But that's my concern with reducing that.
So we got 500 and 500. Approximately both years.
Mhm.
2023. We cut that by 500.
Mhm. Yeah, I would be comfortable with that, as long as we have something there.
I didn't want to cut it all together, but look at usage.
And Tina, if it's any consolation, you wouldn't not make the expense, you'd make the expense. You have to run the program.
Right,
Right.
right.
So I wouldn't wait for board approval to do something that you need to do to effectuate your program.
Right.
What you do is you come back to the board and go, this happened, and here's what I need to do to correct it. So
Okay.
just for your own comfort level,
Yeah.
the board's not gonna say no to a program expense that you're kind of required to do. They're not gonna like it,
Right.
but they're going to understand it.
Yeah,
So-
I guess my concern was I thought there was a previous discussion that we weren't gonna be allowed to expend money out of a line where there was no money in that budget line.
You won't. So, but the way that the way the process works. If it's approved in the finance committee before that audit, it still goes through that audit, so it won't slow down your bill process. It won't slow down the payment process.
I see what you're saying.
Yep.
It'll kind of happen at the same time.
It'll happen simultaneously.
Okay. So then tuition, as you can see, that is a hefty expense, for this program. So last year we were at about 3 million. We're projecting, that to go up, to 3,061,000, is what we're budgeting for 2026. There was an increase, in the rates that we have to pay the tuition for kiddos to go to these programs. Those rates are set by the state education department, based on what the agencies submit for their costs. So that is what that increase is related to, is an increase in the rates, based on the agency's costs.
Yeah, what was the number of kids again, the census?
174.
Right now, it's 174, could fluctuate up to over 200. Right now, we're still at the beginning of the school year, so there's kids that are still being evaluated, to see if they qualify for the program.
We do have kids on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just, this 3,061,000, 59%, but not a true.
Right.
Is covered by the state.
Yes.
Right.
So the next line on transportation, how much of that's covered by the state?
So that again is the 59.5% less any chargebacks that we have.
And this is to get the kids to the program.
Yes, correct.
And we haven't been over 700,000 yet, but we're budgeted 800,000, and you're saying there's a few less kids, there could be more after evaluation. We'd be comfortable with a 700,000 budget, knock 100,000 off of that.
Yep, Brandon and I have been talking about that. My concern would be, And I'm okay with doing that. My concern would be just for the committee to be aware that if we do get to a point where we are gonna be over, we won't have that extra room in there to be able to move money around. So if we end up being over in our contractual expenses or our tuition line, we won't have that extra flexibility, I guess, to move money out of that transportation line. The other issue, right now, we contract with Durin, Transportation. In their contract, they are eligible for at least, not a maximum of 2% increase. That's based on the CPI index. Fortunately, this year, the CPI index, they did not get an increase, based on that. We won't know what next year's will be till probably April or May. That's usually the one we base it on. So Durin could see an increase of up to 2%, depending on, but again, that's all stuff that we can bring back, at the time. But just so, you know,
So if we lower that 100,000, do we also have to lower revenue?
yes,
By 59,000.
by the 59.5.
But we're still 40,000.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that we do it right.
Who raises the concern to get 3 to 5-year-old tested services?
So, it could come from the provider, the doctor's office, the child's pediatrician. It could come from the family, somebody within the family, get a self-referral if they notice that, my kid's not speaking the way they should be speaking, or they're not developing their motor skills. It could also come, a lot of times we have kids that are in the early intervention program. So then once they age out of that program, they could be evaluated, for the preschool program.
Early intervention is for the age.
Yeah, to 0 to 3. Or 0 till they turn 3.
We have 15% of the population of our kids in age 3 to 5. In that, I just did a little bit of research. And I'm pretty sure we have 2,800 kids in the county under the age of 5. So if we take 60% of that, 4 and 5, we have 1,400 kids. And that's way above the average, way above the national average, almost double. So that's, we wonder. Is it a free, if they can't look at it any way that is an opportunity for the kids to be taken care of? Otherwise, wouldn't it be expensive for the parents?
They are evaluated by an independent provider, not state person. So we do have kids that don't qualify. It really is a very set criteria of what they use to determine if a kid qualifies for services. For this program, it is, and for early intervention, it is, I guess, out of our control who qualifies and who doesn't. It is based on the evaluator's recommendations of whether they qualify.
And then majority of the kids get repeated services, and those rates are set by the county. So there's 57 kiddos that go to a program that's where that tuition cost really comes into play. That's the biggest expense that we have. It's not the kiddos that just need speech.
That are getting it in the home.
Are getting it in the home, or at school if they're in pre-K.
No, the other one. Oh, where did it go? Right here, this one.
And it is one of the ones that we contract with is Head Start. In this program, 3 to 5.
They're not one of we could have kids at Head Start that a provider's pushing into. They could go in and do like the speech therapy there, but they're not one of the center-based programs. Yep, our biggest one, I believe, is New Meadow. It's right out of Fort Howard School. Any other questions on preschool? Move on.
The only difference, in my opinion, that would occur here is instead of spreading it throughout the county, if you think about the way the program is set up, even if, you look at the school district would have to account for that, and they would be taxing their districts.
Well, they are.
Well, they are, but even more so. Well, the point is, if it wasn't distributed across the county, it would then, the burden would go to the school district. And I'm sure that, that'll be lopsided in terms of, some people would consider that to be lopsided. But to your point on the percentage, yeah, that's kind of it's a pretty scary number.
The pride,
Unnerving
too early.
that percentage is that way.
The national average is 69.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on? Do we have a lot of lead doors out there that someone's gnawing on when they're crawling around? I don't know.
We try to prevent that too.
Yeah.
Mr. Hank.
I'll just quickly in my head, that's roughly $18,000 per kid per year. Is there any portion of that that's required for the parents to pay? So I put my kid into it, that's regardless of my income, regardless of anything else, we just pay, there's no mandatory taking. If I said, hey, I don't want the county to pay for my kid, I don't want to do it, can I do that? I didn't think so.
So curious question, if we're housing homeless, no matter we house them, would their kids, children, age group be in this program? So they could be living in Warren, Washington County as long as we're housing them. In a motel someplace, we'd have provide transportation for them to get there and all that other.
It's all in there.
What we do, well, just to put out why it's a higher average.
No, it raises a lot more questions.
Than the
We have
answers.
no answer. And it is being twice the average, systematic system, feeding schools, and parents are finding this as a free daycare alternative. So they would, it could be.
But they should be screened out.
Depends if some screeners are, you can imagine all sorts of conspiracies.
What's the approximate unfunded number? For this,
Oh, they're paying 59. Yeah, let's say 30 more or 41. 40. At least 40%, it's probably closer to
where's
45.
that dollar figure?
You see where these programs help children.
Hang on, I want to get the answer to this question.
Oh,
What's the unfunded number? Please.
If the total was what, 3 million?
And it'd be about 2.2, 60/40.
That's a huge number.
Huge number.
It's a
Unfunded, by
One-
new mandated by
one-
the state, unfunded.
1 time is unfunded,
So
1/2 of it is unfunded,
40% unfunded.
40%, the spread between those.
It's probably 45%. Because the 59.5 isn't in stone.
You're reimbursed 60%, that's 1.8.
So for 2026, we have 4.1 million budgeted for expenses for this program. Revenue we have anticipated coming in, including Medicaid and the 59.5% is 2.6 million. So it ends up being a net cost of the net cost is the 2.6, the 2.6 million is the net cost.
Huge.
Which ends up being, so about 64% is funded between Medicaid and the 59.5%. Because the 59 goes down to about 53% after the chargebacks. So then we have, about 64.6% is funded between those two different revenue sources.
The budget's reflecting 4.6 versus 2.6 for 1,979,410.
Net to the.
Net cost to the Washington.
2 million.
So
Because
this budget at the front of you has 4,656,229 in expenses. 2,676,819 in revenues for a net cost of the county of 1,979,410.
5% of our budget on 200 kids.
too. Which is.
The numbers seem to
Some
show,
of it is,
but the question is how, why, and whoa.
And just those numbers that I just want to make sure that the payroll for preschool also includes the early intervention staff. We don't have a separate early intervention payroll. So that the 0.1s that you're seeing there for the preschool program, those people are also completing the early intervention program as well.
Yeah, and our questions and our comments are not an indictment on.
Sole situation.
This is,
You know, it's
like the back of the system and how it's set up, right?
it started to make a figure out of that. I mean, the biggest stuff.
And there has been a push, I don't know if you've heard it at NISAC, there has been a push for the transportation piece that we pay Durin. We could definitely save money if we went through the school districts, and paid the school districts instead of paying Durin. Durin is very expensive, they're the only one that bids, on our contract. For obvious reasons, the school districts are, I think, hesitant to bring on that additional responsibility. But would be a cost savings. And I know there's been presentations on it at NISAC. Sometimes you have a family that one kid's getting picked up by the school, one kid's getting picked up by Durin, and they're going to the same place. So, you know, but I understand where the school districts are coming from as well. With that.
You want to shift cost items?
It would still be our cost, it would just be less cost.
Yes,
Because your program ends at 5, do you know how much of an advantage it is for the children to go once they catch up? Is there a big percentage of them they catch up, or is it just we see it in our school budgets after?
Yeah,
And I think in some of the cases I've seen, it's definitely an added value, it definitely puts the child gives where they should be. So it's horrible that on a county dollar, but it's still, you know, there's value.
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna refer to Eliza.
Program, so you kind of have to look at it from the birth through school age perspective. So we get a certain number of referrals into early intervention for birth to 3, for birth to about 2 years and 3 months. Transition into that 3 to 5 program starts at about 2 years, 3 months. So children can be referred like in effect for all kinds of referral sources for all kinds of reasons. They don't all qualify for that early intervention piece. But any that do qualify and stay in that early intervention piece up to their 3rd birthday, they're then reevaluated through the school district that they live in to see if they qualify to continue into the preschool program. Not all of them continue into the preschool program. Not all families opt for either the early intervention program or continuing into the preschool programs. So these are both voluntary programs. Parents cannot currently, if they're referred and they qualify, they're not even required to participate in the program. So I wouldn't say this is 100% reflective of the need for the schools when children become school age and are in school. Any that have been involved in the preschool special education program, again, are then reevaluated to see if they qualify, continue special ed services in school. I mean, we could work with school districts to look at that analysis. I'm not sure that.
But we don't have enough counties. The county department doesn't pay for it then, right? The school budget, because we're in school, or do we have an obligation then too? Because I was just trying to decide how long.
So then it gets scrapped with the cost of special education services with role to the school district. Whether they're similar to this program administered at the school district or at a special program.
And is it right that they age out when they turn 6 years old? So it's while
No,
they're
when they are kindergarten age eligible.
So it really is a 2.5 possible year window, not a 3-year window. Third birthday.
Yeah.
3rd birthday, but the calendar year for the school could be.
Yeah, it depends on, there's a very
muddy area.
complicated chart, but like, so if a child's birthday is October first,
Right.
and they turn 5 today,
They're in a different class.
for this school year, they're now eligible for.
So it's not a 3-year window for these kids. It's about a 2.5-ish year window.
Yeah.
So my percentage is higher. It's up to 19%. Because I did ages 3, 4, and 5 and out of 0 to 5. Really, how?
Dan Shaw,
Yes, are there more programs to review?
Yes.
Okay, I want to wait until you were done reviewing the programs, and I got an overall
Okay.
3 questions I have at the end.
Okay.
I
Okay, so.
have one question
Sorry.
on special needs. If there's special needs children, I know because I have them come out of Hampton, that a bus picked them up every day with an aide and took them to Albany for special classes. Does that come under us, or does it come under the schools?
Depending on the age, if the child's in our preschool program, then it would be we would be paying for that.
Feel like what by? Bus.
What the age of? Somebody was.
Okay, I'm gonna go on to public health next. So the revenue starts on page 12 for public health. So down at the bottom of the page, it's the 4004 account, public health. That first line, the 161005, that is money that we bill to either to insurance companies or our licensed home care service agency, where our nurses can go out and do home visits. You'll see that also gets booked at the end of the year by the treasurer once we send over our reports. And we did lower that. We're not seeing as many referrals come in for that program. We are still trying to we do outreach by phone. We offer them a home visit. But at this point, we're just not seeing the visits there. So we did lower that down to $500. For the 168901 account, that is our donations that we receive from the rabies clinics, which is usually people are quite generous at those clinics. So we kept that the same, the $3,000. And the 168902, the other public health income, immunization income, that is money that we receive from our immunization clinics. You'll see that we only have 275 there right now. That will increase throughout the fall. This is our busy time for immunizations. Usually now through December with flu and getting kids caught up at school. And we do bill whenever we can. If somebody does not have insurance, we also offer the sliding fee for that as well. And many times the vaccine itself is free because it's through the Vaccine for Children's program. We receive the vaccine from the state, passed through the federal government. Any questions on any of those revenue lines? What's that? Yep. That gifts and donations line at the bottom, the 2705, the $677. We need to move that. It's actually it's donations, so it needs to be moved up into the 168901. So we'll be asking the treasurer to move that money, just so you're aware. On the next page, page 13, the 404-2801 account, interdepartmental revenues. We do have a partnership with OFA to do the Tai Chi program. And we are reimbursed for those expenses from OFA. So this year we've received, it says 2,500, we've actually received $4,000. We don't put anything in the budget line there because we wouldn't always know what we're going to be getting from OFA for that program. So we do book that after we receive that revenue.
Question, does OFA budget any expense for that?
Correct.
Well, if you're budgeting expense, why are we not budgeting revenue on the other side?
And I guess that could be a discussion I could have with Gina as far as if we know a set amount that we would be able to budget on the revenue side, we could.
Well, whatever she budgeted for expense, wouldn't that be a fair number to put in
Yes.
for revenue? So whatever she did there,
That would make sense, yes.
They should tie out.
I don't know though, and I can't speak for Gina, but I don't know if it's a lump sum amount and they don't know until they run their programs to see which is gonna go, what's gonna go to Tai Chi, what's gonna go to the different areas.
Yeah, it's a certain level of funding. It's a federal funding that we get that can only be used for evidence-based programs. And in this case, we use 100% of that towards the Tai Chi for arthritis program. That allocation changes every single year. So understandably, where we had an estimate early on and then it ended up being $4,000 payment. We never know what that allocation.
right, you budgeted.
So we shouldn't budget
Whatever
the
that is.
expense.
We,
So we shouldn't budget the expense if we're not budgeting the revenue. We should do it at
Or-
the same time.
budget the revenue.
Or vice versa.
But they should both be there. And then you.
Either
we
both
make
in or
adjustments.
both out.
We
No,
make
I
those
agree.
adjustments.
So I can get that amount from Gina and let you know, or,
Okay.
so we either have it in there. The revenue.
Yep, we could.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And then moving on down to the state aid, the 4004, 3401. That is our, the basic services grant that we get, under Article 6 for our public health work that we do. The core funding there is 575,000. That's our core grant. That's when we talk about 36%. Once we maximize that $575,000, then we go into a 36% reimbursement rate. So normally in our department, we maximize that grant within the third quarter of the fiscal year. So like right now, we are at we're probably at a 36% reimbursement rate right now for our expenses for the public health work that we're doing. Like I said, the first 2 quarters are fully funded, 100%, and then after that, once we maximize that, we go to 36%. Also included in there, just so you're aware, we have the rabies grant in there, and the
Lead grant.
the lead poisoning prevention grant are also included within that line item. And you'll see that we did budget an increase there at 824,000. And that is to cover the expenses that we have for the different programs with the reimbursement that we're seeing there. If you remember a few years ago, they did increase our core grant up to the 575,000. But then they also gave us we then had the authority to be able to claim fringe benefits, which we've never been able to claim on state aid before. So that kind of sucked up that core. So it really wasn't a true increase of what we could spend on public health services. It did get absorbed with the fringe benefit, being able to claim those fringes, which was definitely a good thing. Moving down the lines,
Where's that number?
the 575,000.
That's just something.
It's set by law. It's in the public health law of what we would get. And we are considered a partial service health department, so we don't do environmental. So if you were a full service county, you would be getting more of that core.
But they can't vary because.
Correct.
And I didn't understand. One of the things we seem to constantly deal with is these things called percentages. And Bob's point is clear. Maybe for the budgeting process, all of us to understand, if we had a 3401.1, 575 fixed, 3401.2 would be 36% rate on additional. Then you would actually, here at the budget, you would know. And as you go through the year, we would even know
Yeah.
what we're looking at.
We do have that breakout.
They have to be doing it.
They
To tell
are
us.
doing it.
Right,
This
they have to
number-
be doing that to tell us.
But this number is a hybrid number.
Yes, for us,
Right,
yeah.
and when we look.
No, I agree.
So when we would look at the expenses piece, also.
And what actually pays the other 250? It's a different pot of money or?
I've said it.
Above.
Or that's
Yeah,
36%.
Close to 36%.
Right,
they-
but how do you get that? So the 575 is by law, you
Yep.
get that.
Yep,
So how are you able to get the other 250? Is it a different fund or they
Nope,
just,
same fund.
they just do it a different way
Yeah.
on that other group?
So we submit quarterly claims to the state, and there's a formula in there that once we maximize the 575, it automatically then starts calculating at 36%. So that's what we would get reimbursed. State is looking at our spreadsheets on that.
Do they fund you quarterly, monthly?
Yes.
So
Yep.
every month, whatever,
Quarterly.
you get a quarterly statement, which is 1/4 of 575.
We have to spend it to get it.
You probably, until you get above 575, it's just that number per quarter. The minimum of what you've submitted. They're not gonna fund you if you submit 0.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So
Yep, it's definitely a cost basis, so we have to spend the money first, and then get reimbursed. So Fran will submit a quarterly claim to them, that lists all of our expenses.
you get 201 first quarter, you get 200.
Yep.
Second quarter, you get 100, you get 100.
Right,
You get split once you cross
Right.
575.
yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Absolutely.
So Brian, so the amount over the top, the 575, the county's responsible for about 160,000 of it, 240 or whatever.
That's the way we can look at it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That comes from the taxpayer.
You know, that way we can look at it in the revenue side and compute what we're out. And the forecast as a budget item, like you just did, Jay.
And then those next few lines, are, I guess we call them old revenue lines. The 3450, that was several years ago, healthcare workers received a bonus, for state guidelines, so that is no longer. The fellowship grant has also ended, so there's nothing there nothing for 25 and then nothing for 26. And then the next three lines, the 4401, that federal aid for public health work, that is our immunization action plan grant, our award, I should say. It's 31,050, that has remained consistent, and we do, that does pay for staff time when we do our clinics, and things of that nature, and it is another one that we max, every year. The federal aid, public health other, that is our infrastructure grant. So for that one, we, based on information last year, it was decided that we should budget for the 0.1 portion of the grants because they're in the expense side. So that 83,000 does represent the staffing portion related to the infrastructure grant. And you'll notice that it did decrease. We do have another grant that we were approved to apply for and receive called the Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. So that does require a 0.5 FTE. So we're moving 0.5 of the infrastructure grant money, not the money, but the person to this other grant to meet the qualification for the 0.5 FTE. So that's why there is the decrease there for that amount. But you'll see that once we get the award and get it into our budget. And then the 448902, that's our public health preparedness line item. Again, that is salary only. That's listed there, and you will see that was a decrease as well. We used to have 2 people that were on that grant, and now we only have 1 person that's budgeted on that grant, and it's just a small portion of her salary.
On your other one, your public health, other than there's expenses for that, and that's just not there yet, what that number's gonna be. That's gonna add up to eventually.
This will be in our carryovers.
Right.
Beginning of
In
next
January.
year.
There'll be 0.4 expenses, 0.2 expenses that will carry over when we do those resolutions in January. Okay. So that is the revenue for 404. If we switch to the expenses for 404, which is on page 70. So, great, sorry, right at the top of the page, the 404.1s. You will see an increase in the 2025 adopted budget to the 2026 department request. We do have a couple of our staff that are on the NICEF contract, so that does include their contractual increases. And then it also does include the steps of longevity for the other staff within our department. Overtime remained consistent. For the straight time overtime, we did decrease the time and a half overtime based on what we've actually seen in the last couple of years and what we're projecting for this year. And then we also have our on-call pay. We are required to have somebody on call 24/7. So that does reflect that. And it did remain the same. There was the same number of days that there were in 2025 for 2026. And any questions on the point ones? I did speak with the budget officer and the county administrator regarding open positions that we have. We do have right now, well, we actually have 2 open positions. We have a RN staff nurse that's open, and we also have our infection control communicable disease coordinator position that's open. At this point, we have had the RN staff positions open for quite a while. They have not been filled consistently. We would be willing or be able to survive as long as there's no other public health emergency that comes up with reducing our staffing pattern by the 1 registered nurse. So that would bring us down to 3 RNs or 3 FTEs for nursing. Which I think would be sufficient for our program. We've survived this long. We do have we actually have a nurse starting coming up, which will fill that other position that's been vacant. So we're excited to bring her on. She's been a school nurse for many years, so I think she'll be a great asset to our department. But that salary is 63. It's 63,000 that we would be able to remove from that.
Wow,
that
thank you.
budget.
And then we frame that.
And if we did have some sort of, like we did before with COVID, a public health emergency, or we had to do some clinic for measles outbreak or something like that, we could also look in per diem nurses possibly to be able to come in to help with those clinics. The second position I really would like to keep. It's our infection control communicable disease nurse. Right now that position is open. We are working our best to keep up with that, but it is a struggle without that position filled. It's following up on all of our STDs that come in, which seem to be on the rise. We follow up on all of the enteric diseases. So if we get a salmonella or any E. coli, things like that, we want to make sure that we're following up on those cases. Anybody that has anaplasmosis, Lyme disease, go in and make sure that we don't usually follow up with the person with those because we would be on the phone all day with the number of cases, but we do go in and make sure that the person has received the appropriate antibiotic and that they've been made aware that they've had a positive test result. So, we are following up on those even if we're not making contact with the individual person.
Moving back to the on-call pay.
Mhm.
That has to be an RN to be on call.
No, and we don't have, it's not always an RN that's on call. There's always someone available that they could speak to, as far as like a supervisory nurse, or Eliza, that if they have a question that comes up that needs a nurse to answer, they can always get a hold of them. But right now we have our public health specialists on call. We do have our nurses in the rotation. We also have our health educator and our public health preparedness coordinator. They're on call as well. They've all been trained, on how to handle most of the time. I would say 99% of the time, it's a bite or a rabies call, that we're getting. So they've all been trained on that protocol.
So my next question is, what is the on-call? Is it every evening after 5
Yep.
and weekends?
Yep, so it starts at 4:30 and goes until 8 the next morning or 8:30 the next morning. They carry an on-call phone with them. It's very rare that they would have to leave their home. It's mostly, most things they can handle right from their home. The only, and it is weekends, holidays, and again, that is something that's required under public health law.
Those 24 hour time, Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Okay, and so I'm just asking the question because of me possibly saving money. Why can't this be handled down in 911? Isn't the training very similar? And is there any way of making that work? Just a question, not out there.
Well, and I can't answer for public safety's point of, where they would be coming from, but it does involve an investigation. So when a person calls in and says, oh, I got bit by a dog, we have to then call the victim, we have to call the owner of the dog. And then if we can't find the animal, then we have to work with the hospital, and to get the person in for post-exposure. So it's more than just.
But couldn't that all be done during the day when you're back? That's when it normally would occur, that
It really,
follow-up.
yeah, it really depends on the situation. Sometimes it is taking information and following up on Monday, but if there is an instance where somebody was attacked by a raccoon or something in their home or in their yard, that is something we need to act on immediately.
And wouldn't they start by calling 911 anyway?
They could, yep, and then dispatch then calls our on-call nurse, and our on-call nurse then gets involved, or our on-call person, I should say. Then they get involved and handle it from there. It can be quite time consuming. And I'm not sure it's something that public safety would be able to take on, I guess, with all their additional responsibilities.
Still need on call.
And you also said it's a public health law. That
It is.
It doesn't sound like it's up to their control.
It's public health law.
that they have.
So another example of something we could get called for, there are certain diseases called red phone diseases. So even on the weekend, doctor's offices and hospitals should let them know if they're sending a test to a lab, but occasionally a test comes through like on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And Tina and my phones ring and the on-call phone ring every 5 minutes until that lab is picked up. So there's other things that could happen, that our staff are trained as responsible
Thank
as
you.
well, outside of rabies.
What examples?
Measles.
Measles, so if an emergency room tested someone for measles, it didn't tell us they tested someone for measles. And the test result came through on the weekend, we would have to start investigating that on the weekend. Tina and I are involved in that on-call structure as well, and we do not get additional on-call pay for that within our salaries.
Thank you for your service.
In most calls, our staff is very well trained. It's probably a rare occurrence that we would get a call from staff. So, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right, where are we? So we had talked about the point ones. And then, so if we go down further down the page, we don't have anything budgeted under equipment. The 404, 26, 25, 23, 11, that is our infrastructure grant. So that'll be added in January, when we do that resolution to fill those funds over. And then same thing with the next line, the public health preparedness line. We'll do a resolution to pull over, anything that's equipment, related, from those grants. Going down through the other point fours, we have our telephone line. We do have cell phones, and that is what that is budgeted there, within our department. That also is language line. We do utilize language line if we have a non-English speaking person, and we need translation, we use online. I do have a message out to, Terry. We are going to be going to a cloud faxing. Right now, everything's done, we send paper faxes. With moving over to Burgoyne, we are gonna be going to cloud faxing. So I'm not sure, it is a per page charge for that. So I don't know if that will be our responsibility or if that's something that the IT department's going to be picking up on their budget. So I guess we'll wait and see, once we have that discussion with Terry. So that line may change a little bit, based on that. Postage, we did drop down, and that's just based on usage, based on prior year expenses. Office supplies other, again, we dropped that. So maybe, no, okay, decrease that based on usage. The food, that's just if we are out at a conference or and the meals are not provided. Again, I know this discussion happened just a little while ago. There's nothing there yet. We do have expenses related to that. They're just not showing right in that line. Dues and subscriptions, that is, we have dues that we pay to the New York State Association of County Health Officials, which really is critical for our department. We get a lot of great information from them. They really do advocate for us at the state level. So that is definitely something that I would really like to keep within our budget. Out of that $5,000 budgeted, about $3,700 of that is nice HO dues. Also in there, we have a Medicaid compliance hotline. We have to have that for OMIG regulations, and that's $12.50. And we did not choose to renew our the reason for the decrease, did not choose to renew our home care association dues. They had changed the way they calculate that, and it was way more expensive than it used to be, and we just weren't getting the bang for our buck there. So we did take that out of the budget, and that was about $1,500 that we had budgeted in there for the previous year. Moving on to travel, that we have, yeah, so that we decreased already $100. That's travel to trainings and conferences. We could lower that to 400, and I'm sorry, to 100, and still be comfortable there. So most of our conferences are paid for, or they're local travel. So we could definitely lower that to 100 if that's the wish of the board.
To 100. Yeah.
Or
$100
savings.
The 100.
And then printing, that's we have a contract with Sealy's to pay for printing costs. So that remained consistent from the prior year. Insurance, we do have to pay malpractice and liability insurance for our healthcare providers. So that again remained consistent the prior year. Under maintenance contract, that did decrease because, well, it's going to decrease another $2,515. We can remove 2,515 more out of that account with our Medent, which is our clinical documentation software. We are going to a cloud base with that, which is going to save us the 2,515 based on the new monthly costs over that. So we can decrease that there. Under education and training, this is consistent with prior year. And we believe we can take that out of there because all of our conferences that we attend are paid for. They're either paid for by the organization themselves because they want us to come, or they're paid for with a grant. So our thought was we could move that 1,500 or take it out of this line and move it to the actual grant line that it goes under, and we could do that when we pull over our grant money in January. So it'll be part of the grant money that we pull over in January, so we feel comfortable taking that 15. So
That makes sense.
the 1,500 out of there because it'll be covered under other lines.
Sure, thank you.
So then we go down to carpool. That's consistent with prior year. And again, we do utilize our cars. And again, 2 of them are cars that we purchased under. We do pay for the maintenance of those cars. But we do utilize those cars on a daily basis. And then Mylar, I know this was talked about with the buildings and grounds superintendent as well. We really don't know what's gonna happen when we move over to Burgoyne, what our costs are gonna be there for Mylar. So we did, and that's maintenance in lieu of rent, so we did keep that consistent with the prior year. Tuition, we really don't have any wiggle room there. That is in our NISNA contract that we don't have anybody right now taking classes, but we could in the future, so we have to have that budgeted for in case we have one of our nurses that wants to go back and further their education.
We need that much, Tina?
That's the amount that's listed in the contract, the maximum amount we can spend. So
When we take it out and you come back if you need it.
I never use it.
Yes.
Once it's necessary, yeah.
yeah, because I think even with that, if we did that, it's a reimbursement basis. So they have to give us their invoice, and once they've paid it and they get a certain grade.
I think if you would have turned that train quick enough, you needed to.
I agree.
Right.
Under the BT grant, again, that is money that we will add, that's the public health preparedness grant. Once we get that money that's left for 2026, we'll move that over in January. Same thing with the infrastructure grant, we'll pull that money over. And then we have our fringes there. So do we have any other questions on the public health side of things? So if we move to page 13, which is our family health line. Revenue line that we have there is the so keep in mind this one, that 404 state aid line, the Article 6 revenue line, the 3410, is that what it is? That line includes the expenses for family health. It's one revenue line for all of our state aid that we get under Article 6. This particular line, this 405-4510, this is our car seat grant. So that money will be added later in January, once we know what we have unspent from that grant. And then if we move on to the expenses for family health, the 405-46, I'm sorry, page 71.
Yep.
405-4625, that is our lead poisoning intervention program. Consistent with prior year, that grant has not increased. And then 405-4630, that's our Article 6 expenses related to family health. We did drop that about $1,000. You'll see that the 2024 actual amount is $20,000. That includes the car seat program expenses in there. So we'll add that. Those expenses will be added once we add the revenue, obviously, for 2026. And any questions on any of those programs or on that program, family health? So if we move on to 406, so we're on page 13. Yep, so we're on disease control, it's about halfway down the page. We have gifts and donations revenue. That is, we have a chronic disease self-management program. And based on what zip code the people are from, we do get some reimbursement from the organization that sponsors the program or that awards us the program. So, and also in there, we've applied for the Walmart Sparks grants. So that's in that number as well. So those are, they come in as get them. So it's kind of an unknown because if we're doing the class, we don't know what zip code people are going to be in. If they consider it an underserved area, then we'll get reimbursement for it. With the chronic disease self-management program, I also have special permission from New York State Department of Health to claim that on our Article 6 state aid, because there is no other provider of that service within our county. So just so you're aware, that program is funded, other than just the reimbursement we get from the underserved reimbursement. And then the 406-4489, as you recall, we did a training for the BOLD program, which was big, building our largest dementia infrastructure, which it was a great training. But again, that was a one-time grant funding. So there's nothing there for 2026. And if there is more funding available, we'll bring it back. So the expenses related to disease control are on page 71. Under the 406 account. We do have, under the 406-2625, under the grants equipment, we do have $5,000 budgeted there. That is for clinic equipment and that is 100% covered under the Immunization Action Plan grant.
So have we shown the revenues for that?
Yes. And then under the 406 406.4s, if you look at the 406-4630, that is our Article 6 funding for disease control. This is where the rabies expenses would hit. Any clinics that we do, immunization clinics would hit there. Any communicable disease expenses that we have would hit this account. So again, we had already talked about previously the shortage we're going to have for 2025, but we do have the money in our point ones to cover that. So
That's what's gonna hit that actual line. 47,000 is gonna be 107,000, basically, is what you're telling us.
right. Yes.
Okay. Bring that full circle.
Yeah. And then under the 406-4650 account, TB expenditures, I know I talk about this each year. We are responsible for paying for somebody's treatment if they are an active tuberculosis case after insurance. So again, it is similar to the rabies. We do request them to bill insurance, and then we would be responsible for any out-of-pocket expenses. If somebody does not have insurance, we would be responsible for the drugs that they need, any x-rays they need, any specimen collection. We would be responsible for that. So thankfully, we have not had an active tuberculosis case in quite a few years. So this is a line that, we want to put something in there to be able to cover those expenses if we have them, but again, it's that unknown. So I don't know if you feel comfortable dropping that down some, so at least we have something in there to cover. It could get quite costly if we end up paying for x-rays and testing and.
It wouldn't matter how much we have in there, there's not enough to do that in that case.
Right, so we did have, if you look back, we did have one child in 2023 that we did have to pay for. It wasn't this child was not an active tuberculosis case. It was a latent tuberculosis case, correct? So we did have to pay for the medications for that as well because the child was not insured. So that's where that $400 comes in.
So
last year we only paid $31.
So if we take out 2,500, it would leave it.
Yeah, and I can always come back.
Basically, well,
If,
you would be if it was a real case.
right.
way more than $3,000.
So leave it at put it at 500.
Yeah.
All right. That'll work. Come back when you need it.
Okay, so that's what disease control. Any questions on any of that? And then moving on to community health, the 407, it's on page 71. There is no revenue associated, particular revenue line associated with this. This is our contractual expense that we have with Adirondack Health Institute. We pay them $5,000 each year. It is invaluable, the information that they give us a lot of statistical information, a lot of data that we use. And they really, really do assist us with our community health assessment and our community health improvement plan. So this is it's a one-time annual fee that we pay them each year. So I would really strongly advocate to leave that in our budget. It is extremely valuable for us to have that in there. So it is consistent. They haven't raised it in many, many years. So it is, and it is 100% state aidable. We do claim it on state aid. And it is 100% because we do claim it within that for, so we're still at 100% and not the 30.
Okay.
And then we have 4008, which is on page 71. Oh, so it's right at the bottom there. This is our health education line. We did drop that down $2,000. This money is really where we come up with the giveaways that we have as far as promotional items. When you see things at the fair, like the toothbrushes, tick kits. Well, sometimes tick kits we can put under disease control. So it really kind of depends on what the item is of where we put it in our budget. And where we can claim it, where it makes the most sense on state aid. But we did drop it down the $2,000. You know, this would be like our hand sanitizer that we give away. We did sunscreen. We've done sunscreen. We've done earplugs that we give away at the fair for those noisy days down there. It's a lot of educational, community, emotional stuff that we have at our tabling events.
Including the fair and winter cups.
Yep.
And any school.
Yeah, we have some stuff with the senior picnic, the festival there, the fall festival that's coming out, things like that when we're out doing our tabling. And again, that stuff is 100% funded until we get into that 36% portion. Okay, moving on to page 13, early intervention. And again, this is for those the young kiddos, the 0 to 2. It's down at the bottom where it starts, the 4059. That early intervention service coordinator, that we have 4 service coordinators on staff, and we are able to bill their time that they spend either on the phone or in person with families to Medicaid. So we did drop that down from what was budgeted, $5,000, because of the decrease in the number of kids that we're seeing that have Medicaid. So that was dropped down to $5,000. Right now, you don't see anything booked in there. That is booked at the end of the year. And you'll see that there's nothing in there for 2024 as well. So we need to work with the treasurer on that and see where that money is being posted as far as the service coordination, Medicaid revenue. So we can work on that. I don't see anything under the. Oh, okay. So for instance, last year it was in 2960. It got booked. Versus the 4059 or the 4059. So we can talk about.
Should be even.
Okay. And then the revenue there, the 4059-3449 account, we do get reimbursed 50% from the Department of Health for anything that's not paid by another source. So we get reimbursed from Medicaid, and then we actually reimburse ourselves out of the escrow, for service coordination. So it is 50% reimbursement, and again, that's based on what we have for expenses. So we did raise that, to 271,500. There's always a delay with getting that funding. So we just recently received, 132,000, for this 50% reimbursement, and that was from July 24 to December 24. So they're usually, almost a year behind, in getting that reimbursement. And then moving on to the next page, page 14, we have our federal aid for early intervention. That's our grant. We have an early intervention administrative grant. So we did budget the 0.1s there, in there, and then we'll carry over the rest of that, in January for that line. And then on page 72 is the expenses for early intervention. And some of these will change once we put our grant in January. So again, the telephone line will increase once we get our grant in there, but that right now it does include the cell phones and language line. Postage is the same. Office supplies other, we did drop that down $100 based on usage, but that will be able to be increased once we pull our grant money over. Contract expenses, that's the evaluations for early intervention. Those rates are set by Department of Health. So the budget amount is based on the number of evals, and the rates being increased. 4170, that's the education line. This, if we choose to, we can remove that. That's the one person going to the NISAC. We split it between the two programs because it relates to both programs. The portion that is under this particular is 100% grant. We can claim a portion of that under the early intervention grant, which will pull over that money in January. And then mileage carpool, that's us going out into the homes and out to meet with the families. Again, we talked about this with preschool, but the medical supply line, that's if we need that assistive device. So if we want to drop that down, we can do that, and we can always bring it back. If we need to, what did we drop it down to for?
Drop it down to 500.
So we could do that,
You wanna do that?
drop it down to 500.
Sure.
In the other one, we were taking out the
250.
250, because you'll bring that back with the grant.
Okay.
That goes with it.
Yep.
Yep.
Drop it down to 500.
There you go. Get them.
So the Mylar, again, it's kind of an unknown number. That line will increase because we can claim some of our Mylar expense for EI under the grant. Tuition expenses, we did increase that. There was a legislatively passed increase to the early intervention provider rates. So the increase is 4%, right?
5%.
5%. So the increase is 5% on top of their rates. It has not gone into effect yet, but that will be retro back to April 1st, the beginning of the state fiscal year. In addition to the 5%, there could be another 4% add-on to their rates if we're considered an underserved area. So right now, the state is waiting on their the application they've submitted to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to decide, and then once they get the guidance from CMS, whether we're considered a underserved area, it could end up being closer to a 9% increase for those early intervention providers. So we did increase that to the 525. We know there's going to be at least a 5% increase once those rates become effective in their system.
What do you think? Are we in an underserved area?
I believe we're an underserved area.
And I believe they're based in the, they're picking a certain number of zip code.
Which can get messy for billing.
Also, it might not be every town in the county, it might be a portion of town.
Yep. Transportation, again, that's that during contracts. We did lower that, based on actual usage. From 15,000 down to, 12,000. And that's early intervention. Does anybody have any questions on the early intervention?
I doing the math right, this is about a $290,000 cost to the taxpayers.
For early intervention? Cost of early
I
intervention.
believe,
Is that right?
I believe that's right, but I'm not doing the math as I go along. I'm trying to make sure I get it correct. I'm trying to make sure I get it correct so I can add it in right later.
Right, there's stuff right out in France.
Yeah.
I know.
The cost of that. Oh,
Yeah.
I think.
you do that.
292, 291.
It's the same right there. What's that? 292.
91.
See that?
Gold star.
How many cents?
As soon as you said I'm like,
There's no sense in the budget.
Oh.
I mean,
No sense in the budget, period.
no.
It's just a number anyway, it's a guess.
No, the budget's just a budget.
Yeah, the cost.
Do you get charged rent? Pay
So-
rent, do you have to pay rent?
So we get charged what's called Mylar. It's maintenance in lieu of rent. It's based on our square footage. So we'll get a charge back from buildings and grounds based on our usage of that department.
So by moving, is there any way, is it reimbursable from the,
Yes.
so could we raise the, whatever you call it, not the rent, but
It will, but I don't think we know the rate or whatever, the
Right.
footage even.
If we were,
because you're giving, they're getting.
Right.
more
Yeah.
home. I mean, is
We
there,
haven't got the number figured yet, was the last thing I got told.
Yeah, and it's not 100% funded because there's, obviously we have employees that are not covered under state aid. We have our preschool, like our non-public health employees. So we have like our preschool employees, our early intervention employees. We have to break out that square footage of that piece of the Mylar, because that's not covered under state aid.
in your Article 6 already maxed out.
At that point, yeah.
Yes.
So we would get probably 36% back,
Of the eligible,
on the Mylar, on the eligible piece, right?
but it probably will be looking, and the number probably will tick up is my guess, because the indirect cost is part of that calculations.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Is Rick, are we have,
What was that payment, rent payment?
We had WIC and then we had.
How much was it?
Yeah,
For 2024?
yeah.
How much was Mylar?
Between the program.
You're in charge.
You smell that shit? All right, never mind. You smell that? Wake up, Mickey. That somebody else paid for it.
39,000 was paid.
I think we're gonna ask
Oh, wow.
recess
And
and
how much-
join us for lunch right now, since it's behind here and all we.
Excuse me, Brian. Brian,
You wanna finish the
Get out of here.
Program.
so 39,000, was that reimbursed by the state or is that
36%.
36% of the 39?
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
14.
No, I'm kidding.
No, if you wanna finish, if you'd rather finish.
I can talk.
Sprint.
Sprint.
The last one's easy.
Well, used to be.
Oh, no.
I said it out loud.
I know.
That means you'd rather recess?
So, and talk about WIC.
Leave.
We have sponsored WIC for many, many, many years before I was here. They've always been self-sustaining. As far as all of their expenses being covered by their grant. We're at a point with WIC, where their expenses are, because of fringes mostly, are outspending their grant. So, I think we really need talk about that, have a discussion.
We brought this up a couple of years ago, cause when's their contracts?
So 2028. So right now we're in a 5-year cycle.
Yeah, so the last time we brought it up, we wanted to get rid of them. We were too late in the cycle to do that. But that's just the truth, because we knew that this was gonna happen.
So I think for 2026, I think we're gonna be okay. So if you look at their, on page 14, if you look at their revenue, the 4482, you'll see that their grant did decrease a little bit, 500, well, it's not their actual grant because it's a different fiscal year. So anyway, the department request is 586,000. We would like that to match what the expense request
We
is.
would like that too.
Yeah.
And it usually has. But if you look at page 73,
593.
it's at 593 based on. So one thing we definitely need to do, the numbers we had budgeted in here before we had the actual retirement budget. So we need to decrease the 4030 line on page 73. We need to decrease that by $6,981, and they will live with that. With the office supplies being decreased by that amount, and that will then chew up the budget. That will then make the expenses match what they have for revenue. Issue is, if there are any, and I know this is still up for discussion and I don't know what the answer is, but if there are any sort of increases in point ones, if there's any sort of raise decided on, or it's gonna then put them over their budget amount.
You have a little room in dues and subscriptions at 4070, because you hardly ever use that. You've got 5,300 there.
For,
4082, 4070 on page 70.
Yeah.
so, yes, so
Oh, you've got something that has.
what happened was WIC was notified that they would be receiving additional money going into 26, the 25-26 year. So their grant starting October 1st. With that information, they went ahead, they did it's called teletask, which is it's an appointment reminder. And it really does help with people showing up for appointments and making their appointments. They signed up, which was paid for this year, which was how much?
$49.50.
$49.50. So I did speak with the WIC coordinator this morning. That is something they can live without. They've been living without it for this long. It definitely is good for their program to have it, but she is willing to not renew that and take that out of the 2026 request. So we could decrease that 5,300 by $49.50. So that would cover if there are any 0.1 increases.
So you almost gotta wait to make that balance at that point in time,
The
right?
yes.
Cause it's equal now. You're gonna have to wait and do that at that point. in
Right,
time.
because of the unknown.
If it's true that we give 100% funded, just get 100% put in the budget, whatever the number is, it'll be.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't make any other drastic changes.
I wouldn't make any other changes to
I'd
that
make the change to the office supplies to get it to balance now,
Okay.
and then ride that wave until we know more.
until we know more.
The WIC fringe, the one below it, the percentages. Yeah. 80.
I want to stress how important WIC is to the community. Last year, they served over 14,000 people within our county. And even just right now, they have over 1,200 people enrolled today that they're serving. So I don't want to lessen the importance, I guess. of
Right,
the
no,
program.
they are important, but we have other groups that have been willing to take them for a while, and we're close to last time, we were like a month late in getting everything done, but it does take them off our legacy costs.
So again,
That's a huge
their
deal.
contract period that we're in right now, that the county has signed on for is 10/1/23 to 9/30/28. So we have a few years left on that. So that is the budget itself. We do have our organizational chart here, and we also have our travel plan. Our travel plan I can hand out. And we do have marked on here if they're funded by an outside source, either grant funded or state aid, or most of what we do, we either have grants or
We'd already covered them anyway.
yeah, yes. And then I do have one staffing request. Which is to increase our senior health educator. So last year we did go through and increase some of our staff to 37.5 hours from 35. And so this year I do have 2 additional staff that I would like to increase to the 37.5. Especially with not filling that one nursing position. There is work that they can do to help with not filling that 4th nursing position. So it's our senior health educator. It would be a net cost after state aid of $2,978 for the senior health educator. And then the other position is the public health program and emergency preparedness coordinator. I would also like to increase her to 37.5 hours versus 35. And that would be a net cost after she's also on a grant and also state aid funded. It would be a net cost of $1,639. Those would be my staffing requests for 2026.
That's based off workload, right?
What's that?
That's just based off workload.
It is, yeah, based off workload, and.
And you took out one of your RN.
Right, so, and they are doing some of that, I mean, they're not doing RN work, but they are supplementing some of that work. Any other questions? Did I get everything? Okay. Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to recess in an hour anyway.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
30 minutes, exactly 1 o'clock.
Clear a recess.
We're recessed.